great Easter weekend. And wow, how about that news that dropped early this morning? Pope Francis dying at the age of 88, the Vatican saying on Easter Monday. The statement coming from Cardinal Kevin Farrell. Dearest brothers and sisters, with deep sorrow, I must announce the death of our Holy Father Francis at 7:35 this morning. The Bishop of Rome, Francis, returned to the house of the Father. His entire life was dedicated to the service of the Lord and of his church. He taught us to live the values of the gospel with fidelity, courage, and universal love, especially in favor of the poorest and most marginalized. With immense gratitude for his example, as a true disciple of the Lord Jesus, we commend the soul of Pope Francis to the infinite merciful love of the one and true God. That is the statement on the passing of Pope Francis this morning at the age of 88 years old on Easter Monday. Now, that is a nice statement and certainly an appropriate statement. I don't think it compares to the President of the United States statement from yesterday when he wrote, "Happy Easter to all, including the radical left lunatics who are fighting and scheming so hard to bring murderers, drug lords, dangerous prisoners, the mentally insane, and well-known MS-13 gang members and wife beaters back into our country." Oh, my goodness.
Happy Easter, everybody.
Yeah, happy Easter. He is risen. Happy Easter also to the weak and ineffective judges and law enforcement officials who are allowing this sinister attack on our nation to continue. Sleepy Joe purposefully allowed millions of criminals to enter our country totally unvetted and unchecked through an open borders policy that will go down in history as the single most calamitous act ever perpetrated upon America. He was by far our worst and most incompetent president, a man who had no idea what he was doing. Okay. But to him and to the person that ran and manipulated the auto pen, perhaps the real president, and to all the people who cheated in 2020 in order to get this highly destructive moron elected, I wish you with great sincerity, love, and affection a very happy Easter. Aren't you in the Easter Monday spirit after that one, Mark? Come on.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he could have made two separate posts, but well.
That was a long one, man.
Come on, man.
That was a long one. So some people DM'd me this yesterday. You know, I'm sitting there trying to enjoy an Easter Sunday. And my inbox on social media starts blowing up with that post. You voted for this guy. Oh, my goodness gracious. He's a lunatic. Let's say 7-8 years ago, I might have referenced this and talked about this and come on the show and said, really? Come on, Mr. President. Now it's like, this is all baked into the cake. This is who Trump is. I didn't vote for Donald Trump in November thinking that he wasn't going to put up social media posts like this. I just knew the country had a very short window to try to course correct and that he was far and away the best option to do that. That's why I voted for him for a third time. And if you think some, inappropriate, maybe out of touch for an Easter Sunday social media post is going to be the thing that makes me say, you know what? You're right. I should have voted for Kamala Harris. You got me. You got me. Trump, posted on Easter about Joe Biden being a moron. So, you're right. I did the wrong thing on November 5. Yeah. Yep. No. I mean, in a perfect world, would he have skipped that post? Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Does it make me sit here and think that the country is now on the wrong track? No, not for a second. But it is interesting because the post prior to the one I just read to you, he posted, Melania and I would like to wish everyone a very happy Easter. Whether you are heading out to church or watching service from home, may this day be full of peace and joy for all who celebrate the resurrection of Jesus Christ. All caps, he is risen. So it's like, I don't know, Caroline Levitt posted that one, and then Trump posted his own message after the fact.
So he did do 2 posts.
He did. Yeah, he had 2 posts. The first one was very nice.
Was the normal one.
Yeah.
Such a nice man.
Makes you wonder who put that one up. And then he got a hold of his own phone and decided he was going to, put his own spin on that Happy Easter message. I don't know. But think about the big topic of controversy over the last week, right? It's this guy, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who is now in a prison in El Salvador, who is believed by district court judges to have MS-13 gang ties, who is in the country illegally, and who the far left in the Democratic Party, which is right now where all the energy is at, right? That's where the energy is in the party. Those are the people in control of the party. They have put Kilmar on a pedestal over the last few years in a way they haven't done since Michael Brown. Or I guess you would say George Floyd. But you can find a list of really bad people that they have propped up for what they believe are positive political purposes. And it's like, does anybody sit there right now and regret a vote for Trump based on a party that is leaning into Kilmar Abrego Garcia? Are you kidding me? Yeah, I'll take the goofy social media posts on an Easter Sunday. No one's perfect. There's one thing we know, right? On an Easter Monday, only one of us in the history of this world have ever been perfect. Wasn't Trump, wasn't the Pope, wasn't you, wasn't me. Just how the world goes. But no one in their right mind is regretting this based on how, the other option in this country, politically speaking, has acted, especially over the last 7 to 10 days with this guy. Chris Van Hollen, the guy who was down there in El Salvador with Abrego Garcia late last week. And by the way, find someone who looks at you and loves you with those eyes, the way that Chris Van Hollen, I keep wanting to call him Van Halen, Chris Van Hollen was looking at Kilmar over a glass of something bubbly late last week at El Salvador. It was quite a scene. So you got these two guys meeting late last week. Van Hollen comes back and he decides he's going to make all the Sunday news TV show rounds. And this really bothered me when he almost called Kilmar an American.
I think at some point, the president of El Salvador realized it was looking really bad to have this person who had been absconded from America, from the streets of Maryland, in one of their prisons.
I know. He almost did what they obviously want to do. Call anybody who has ever stepped foot in this country an American, John.
It's kind of like anti-password game. You don't complete the sentence. I was screaming at my TV last night, finish the sentence.
I know.
I'll say, Abrego wrongly deported. Admittedly wrongly deported, and finish the sentence to El Salvador. Not wrongly deported, just to the wrong location.
Yeah, that would be nice.
A Maryland man from El Salvador. Finish the sentence.
Maryland dad, Maryland father.
Mm-hmm. So I keep yelling at the TV, finish the sentence.
Well, now we get a behind-the-scenes look at the Anthony household. John yelling at the TV is quite a sight.
Van Hollen almost finished the sentence.
Have you yelled at a TV like that since the Chiefs game, or is this the most you've yelled at a TV since the Super Bowl?
It's been a while since the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
I woke up last night, got the 10 o'clock news, and I'm like, finish the sentence.
Well, that'll do it, man. That'll do it.
Picture Jerry Stiller on Seinfeld. Costanza's dad.
Oh, that's you. That's you. I love it. So to tie this all together, nobody is sitting there, and the polling has shown this. CNN had a story on this last week, that 2% of Trump voters at this point regret their vote. And guess what? 2% of Kamala supporters regret their vote. Nothing's changed. The way the media is trying to portray this is all nonsense and largely BS. And it's because they're trying to make you think that the American people are changing their tune, and they're not. And it's because they've experienced 4 years of Joe Biden. They knew exactly what they were getting in Trump 2.0. They knew that would come with a little bit of goofiness, but overwhelmingly, the American people understood the path that we were on economically, on the immigration front and foreign policy was untenable. And this was the guy who had a proven track record and would be able, if anybody could, to try to turn this thing around. 913-408-7957 is how you join us on an Easter Monday on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. We are always streaming, of course, on the KCMO Talk Radio app if you're on the road this morning. Now, how about that Friday news dump here in Kansas City? Usually this gets reserved for national news. We had something on the Kansas City news front we'll get to next on 95.7 FM KCMO.
Call Mundo 913-408-7957. Now on 95.7 FM.
Jackson County Executive Frank White gave us a Friday news dump of all news dumps. On a Good Friday, Frank White elected to basically tell Jackson County residents and the Missouri State Tax Commission to pound sand. Frank White vetoed a county ordinance that directed him to comply with a state tax commission order to roll back and cap the 2023 assessments. Now, this, of course, followed up his announcement on Wednesday of last week when the county executive also defied the Missouri State Tax Commission and said, I will cap the 2025 assessments at a maximum of 15% of an increase on the property assessments for 2025. The Missouri State Tax Commission said, no. This is for 2023. When people saw increases of 50, 100, or 200% in some cases. In very extreme cases. You can't do this. You cannot do this, Mr. White. And he says, don't worry, I'll cap the 2025 assessments. To which many said, well, how mighty white of you. And then on Friday, he rejects the ordinance that said, no, you've got to comply with the Missouri State Tax Commission. In a memo, Frank White said, a final decision has not yet been made, but we cannot and will not implement this ordinance with these fundamental questions remaining unsolved. So that was his announcement on Friday. He provided a 3-page letter asserting 8 reasons for his decision, including the potentially devastating impact it could have on our schools, services, and special funds that rely on property taxes and have likely already spent what they received in the years in question. He seems much more concerned. He is obviously much more concerned about the devastating impact on bureaucracies than he is on his own people. Frank White has not given one rip, and he has not shown to care one iota about anybody in this county, any of his constituents, the people who actually elect him, who may be on the verge of losing their homes, who may be wondering whether or not they can make that property tax payment. He has not shown 1 ounce of care for you. But don't worry. Let's hope the bureaucracies get funded. We've talked to many people about this on the legislature, including Sean Smith, who's going to be back on the show at 8:30 this morning, about how there are ways to do this. There are ways to roll back the assessments on 2023 and not screw over the schools and the police departments and everybody else who relies on property taxes. There's a way to make this work. If you want to make it work, if you care enough about correcting the wrongs as a leader, if you care enough about your own citizens and your own constituents, you will figure out a way to make this work. Instead, this is the lamest of lame excuses from Frank White, but it also has been par for the course. For a guy who has sat there by the wayside and has allowed his own constituents to be put in a position where they feel like they can't catch a break. So the veto comes, of course, a day after he issued that statement committing to capping 2025 assessments. Why would he wait till Friday to do this on the ordinance, though? So the reason that Frank waited as long as he could to say, I am not going to comply with the county ordinance that requires me to comply with the Missouri State Tax Commission to cap the property assessment values at 15% from 2023, the reason he waited as long as he could is because the county commission voted on this by a 5-4 vote. If they want to override Frank's veto, they need a 6th vote. So Frank knew it's Easter weekend. People are out of town. People are, not exactly sitting around looking for something to do. So I will do this on Good Friday. The legislature will meet on Monday. That gives them 2, maybe 3 days on an Easter weekend to try to figure out how they can get a 6th vote to override Frank's veto. That's where this is at right now, and that's why I believe he waited as long as he did. The 4 no votes came from Megan Marshall, Charlie Franklin, Jalen Anderson, and Jeannie Lauer. 3 Democrats and then 1 Republican in Jeannie Lauer. So this is a bipartisan deal. If you are a Jackson County lawmaker, I would urge you to make sure that you reach out to these 4 legislators, Jeannie Lauer, Megan Marshall, Charlie Franklin, and Jalen Anderson, and make sure that they know that you believe that this county needs to comply with the Missouri State Tax Commission and stop trying to protect Frank White from who knows. I'm not even sure what they're protecting him from at this point. But they are working tooth and nail to protect this guy at every turn. And you want to talk about somebody who has no business being protected anymore. It's this county executive in this moment, John.
Got me in line for some Monarchs tickets.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
seriously, you know what? We'll raffle them off for $12 a pop.
We can help you out if that's your interest.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, how screwed do you have to get on your property taxes to feel like I'm getting Monarchs tickets as a good deal in return, for crying out loud? Man, that's unbelievable. 913-408-7957. That is what I would recommend anybody looking into ahead of today's meeting for the Jackson County Legislature, because if they can't override Frank's veto today, then I don't know what's next. Outside of people being stuck with these 2023 assessments, many that are inaccurate, and great. If you got screwed in 23, now they're basically saying, don't worry, we'll only screw you to the tune of a 15% increase now in 2025. Congratulations. How about a little golf applause for that? This is no way to run a county. And it's no way to treat your people who have to wonder whether or not they can stay in their homes going forward because of a property tax, which you can argue is an absurd and illegal tax anyway. But you know what? That's one that we're not winning anytime soon. Property taxes, unfortunately, have just become par for the course in this country, and there's nothing in the near term that's going to change that anytime soon. 913-408-7957. It is good to be here. Great to be here, as always, on a Monday, starting off a new week on KCMO. Just a reminder, if you are not set to join us on June 12th, Guy Benson coming to Kansas City, Fox News, and, of course, afternoon host on KCMO. We'll be down at Boulevard. You can buy your tickets now at KCMOTalkRadio.com. They are selling fast, so we'd love for you to join us. June 12th, that's a Thursday night at Boulevard. Buy your tickets at KCMOTalkRadio.com. Coming up, the Tesla arsonist has been arrested. What do we know? We've got details next.
Hey, it's Kevin Keatsman. Stick around. I'm coming up at 10 o'clock right after Pete Mundo on KCMO 95.7 FM.
Book 'em, Dano. A Parkville resident attending college in Boston arrested and made his initial court appearance on Friday in U.S. District Court in Massachusetts to face federal charges related to an arson at a Tesla dealer in Kansas City, Missouri. Woo! They got him. They got him.
I saw that picture, and I thought it was that kid from Third Rock from the Sun TV show. Was it Tommy Solomon?
Yes.
I was like,
Well, it wasn't him, unfortunately,
No.
or fortunately,
Luckily,
depending on
yeah.
how you look at it. This individual's name is Owen McIntyre, a 19-year-old who has been charged with one count of unlawful possession of an unregistered destructive device and one count of malicious damage by fire of any property used in interstate commerce. So they caught Owen McIntyre, who is back in the Kansas City area on spring break from UMass Boston. His parents are both musicians up in the Parkville area. I wonder if they do, backup singing for our buddy Victor in Parkville or something like that. I don't know. I'm just throwing out the possibility. But anyway, they're musicians. He's back home on spring break, and he decides he's going to go firebomb a Tesla dealership. Brought a Molotov cocktail, and he got busted, courtesy of, it was an extensive investigation that took place. This was about a month ago that this happened here over on State Line Road. And you knew when the FBI and the ATF were on it, this thing was going to get serious, and it was going to happen fast. And that's exactly how this went down. March 17th is when it all took place, down on State Line Road. You had a police officer who saw smoke coming from a gray Cybertruck parked in the parking lot. The officer also saw and collected an unbroken, suspected incendiary device, also known as a Molotov cocktail, near the burning Cybertruck. And the Molotov cocktail was a clear apple cider vinegar bottle, and a burnt rag was found next to it on the pavement. And then they used surveillance footage and DNA to figure out how to track down this individual, Owen McIntyre, who appeared in court over the weekend. I love the statement from Pam Bondi, the Attorney General. She said here in a statement, "Let me be extremely clear to anyone who still wants to firebomb a Tesla property. You will not evade us. You will be arrested. You will be prosecuted. You will spend decades behind bars. It is not worth it. Crimes have consequences." There's a novel concept.
Talk about a bombshell.
I know we've lived in this world for far too long where crime does not have consequences. That's an especially novel concept here in Kansas City. Wait, what? Crime has consequences? Kansas Cityans have not been used to hearing that. I hope that theme has changed under Melissa Johnson, the Jackson County prosecutor, who, given a shot, looks like she's doing as good of a job as she can do to this point. But that is not something that Kansas Cityans have heard in quite some time. This idea of crime having consequences. But that's what Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, said in her statement over the weekend. The people behind these violent and dangerous attacks on private property will face decades in prison. We will not make deals, and we will not negotiate. This is the second arrest in the last week of a suspect charged with targeting a Tesla. So the FBI was in on this, DOJ, ATF. They all obviously played a role. And now you've got this kid who he's thrown his life away. For what? To set a Cybertruck on fire? It's like this is where the messaging needs to be loud and clear. The people in charge are no longer interested in playing your victim game, whether it's for people who want to come across the border illegally or those who want to firebomb Cybertrucks. We don't care about your victim status. No one's interested in hearing about your sob story. There is no sympathy for criminals. Those days are over. And thank goodness they are. And I wish that message was a more unifying one. I wish that was a bipartisan message we could all rally behind. Instead, we've got senators showing up, looking longingly into the eyes of folks deported illegally who are not supposed to be in the country over, a glass of pop in Chris Von Hollen and, of course, Kilmar Abrego Garcia. It's like you look at the big picture here, right? Pam Bondi is arresting people who are setting cyber trucks on fire in Kansas City. And the most prominent Democrat in America over the last week flew on the taxpayer dime to El Salvador to kiss the ring of a man who is allegedly an MS-13 or was at some point an MS-13 gang member who had beaten his wife. That's on record, right? And then, looking at him like he's the second coming of Jesus Christ on an Easter weekend. You could not have a larger contrast over the weekend between these two political parties. And that's not good for America. It's not good for Kansas City, not good for Missouri, not good for Kansas, not good for America. But I'm just here pointing it out. Like, I'm just here pointing out what we all see with our own two eyes, right? That's it. Now, over the weekend, you did also have another protest at this Tesla dealership. So, did you make it, John, or were you still struggling to find something to wear?
Well, it was Easter weekend, so I had something to wear, but I didn't want to present it, before Sunday.
Yeah, that's fair.
So
I understand that. So
had the big reveal plan.
Yeah, I get it. You didn't want to wear your Sunday best and waste it on the Saturday rally. So on Saturday, there were about, according to Jackson County legislator Manny Abarca, who is the classic example of a broken clock being right twice a day. He's right, and he's on the right side with this property tax fiasco with Frank White, but he's basically on the wrong side with everything else. He was live posting on X about this, how he was out there standing in solidarity with 50 of his closest friends on Easter Saturday outside of the Tesla dealer on State Line Road. And, of course, that came one day after Pam Bondi made the big arrest or announced the big arrest of this person who bombed the Cybertruck. So he posted on Saturday afternoon at about 12:30, here at the Tesla dealership on State Line with about 30 new friends. Lots of honks happening. They are here till 2 p.m. protesting the only immigrant I know stealing American jobs. Oh, my gosh.
Such a cute soundbite.
The only immigrant I know stealing American jobs. Of course, that's in reference to Elon Musk and Doge. Imagine thinking that a government job is a birthright. Imagine not looking at this entire situation with Doge and saying, we're $36 trillion in debt. We should probably try to find a way to cut the deficit because if not, our country's screwed. And instead of looking at it that way, which is a fairly common sense, unemotional way to look at it, you say, these Doge people are stealing jobs. They don't have a right to steal our job. Oh, no.
How dare you?
You're not stealing a job. You're simply trying to do everything you can to be fiscally responsible as a country. That's it. But when you're of this mindset, and when you view this through the prism of everyone's trying to screw the little good old bureaucrat, this is the kind of nonsense that you end up getting from your Jackson County lawmakers who stand there on their State Line Road with their signs. And I'll just put it this way. You had people on the side of the road outdoors in masks. They were in their COVID masks, okay?
Well, they didn't want to be recognized.
Well, of course that's why. But it's funny how they would stand there in their masks and then want to be taken seriously when they're outside on the street corner in 2025. Yeah, I know. You're just protecting yourself from COVID. Yep. You're definitely following the science. Or are you hiding yourself? And if so, my question would be why?
Yep.
Is it because deep down you know the absurdity of what you're doing? Makes you wonder, right? Makes you wonder. Coming up, the 6 at 6, top 6 stories in the 6 o'clock hour. We will get to next on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. Good to be with you on an Easter Monday. In the meantime, last month, it wasn't just Tesla Cybertrucks that were getting, unfortunately, lit on fire. There was also a great event, also on State Line Road here in Kansas City, at Centric. Now, you probably have heard of Centric. They've been training the technology workforce for decades in Kansas City. But last month, we told you about a free event that had 50 businesses show up to figure out how to get artificial intelligence involved into their business. And if you're curious about AI, maybe you couldn't make it out last month and you have no idea where to start, Centric has affordable, real-world solutions to help businesses take that first step with confidence. You're probably thinking, I don't know anything about AI, but I know it's important. Centric just wants to talk to you. If you're a small to medium-sized business, most of those don't have the expertise to implement AI, and Centric can be your partner in this. It's just a great place to start a conversation. No pressure. They're not going to try to, beat you over the head and sell you something. Just take the meeting, talk them through your biggest business challenges, and figure out how AI can work alongside you. That's what this is really about. Go to centric.com/AI. They've been helping Kansas City companies with their technology for over 30 years. That's CENTRIQ.com/AI.
It's Mundo in the Morning. Now on FM at 95.7. Set a preset on your radio. KCMO Talk Radio.
Happy Easter Monday. It's 6:50. Let's do it and get it rolling here on KCMO.
It's time for the 6 at 6 on 95.7 KCMO Talk Radio. Number one, Pope Francis dying this morning at the age of 88 on an Easter Monday. And the announcement coming at 7:35 this morning is when it took place. As the statement says here, at 7:35, the Bishop of Rome, Francis, returned to the home of the Father. His entire life was dedicated to the service of the Lord and of his church. And, of course, Pope Francis had been suffering from chronic lung disease and had part of one lung removed. As a young man, he was in the hospital the last couple of months on and off for respiratory issues that developed into double pneumonia. Was there for 38 days. So this does not come as a shock, but of course, he was seen publicly over the weekend, including a meeting with Vice President J.D. Vance, and he passes away hours later on an Easter Monday morning. Number two.
Well, we'll go to where we just were here, and that is the arrest of Owen McIntyre, 19 years old, from Parkville, who was home on spring break in mid-March from UMass Boston when he decided that he was going to go down the State Line Road and throw Molotov cocktails into Cybertrucks, which he did. He was arrested late last week and charged on Friday, one count of unlawful possession of an unregistered destructive device and one count of malicious damage by fire of any property used in interstate commerce. Attorney General Pam Bondi, let me be extremely clear, she says in a statement, to anyone who still wants to firebomb a Tesla property, you will not evade us. You will spend decades behind bars. It is not worth it. Adding crimes have consequences. A novel concept to some based on how this country has been the last few years.
Number three.
Project Turtle. Did you hear where they were going with Project Turtle in Overland Park? Yeah, this is something that obviously has been receiving a lot of attention over the last few days, and that is the fact that there is an Overland Park company looking to move to Overland Park, and we don't know exactly who it is. But Project Turtle is what it's being called. They want to take over the old Spring campus right there at 115th and Null. It's sitting there. No one knows what exactly it's going to be or who is going to be in charge of it, but we're waiting. We're waiting to figure out who that mystery tenant is, and there may be some information on it, John.
There was. At 6, and we'll be at 7, 8, and 9. So. It's Pfizer.
I know.
Oh, okay. I see Pfizer on here, and I was like, oh.
Well, I heard that over the weekend, and I'm just trying to wait to get a little more confirmation on it. But I did hear about this over the weekend.
I can give you the link I use.
Okay, please do.
It's Pfizer, not Pfizer.
Okay, Pfizer. Okay, very good. All right. Well, we'll learn more about that in the weeks ahead.
Number four.
Number four here for the 6 at 6. The Royals salvage the final game of the series against the Tigers, and they snap a 6-game losing streak. So now you're looking at a team that's only sitting there 4.5 back of the American League Central. So that is, I guess, welcome news. Bobby Witt Jr. with a sacrifice fly to get that win yesterday in Detroit, a win the Royals desperately needed. But, man, they have not been able to figure out the bats. They still have not scored more than 4 runs in over 2 weeks. It's just crazy. You got to go back to an 8-2 win against the Orioles for the last time this team scored more than 4 runs in a baseball game, which is just absolutely nuts. But they're still right in the thick of it. It's very early. I mean, it's not even the end of April. They're 4.5 games back. They're 9-14. They salvaged the final game of that 4-game set yesterday, and now a day off today before coming back home to the K and hosting the Rockies starting tomorrow. So that hopefully, after a very difficult start to the season schedule-wise, will begin a turnaround here for the Kansas City Royals.
Number five.
Number 5, tragedy in Overland Park. 2 teens killed, 2 injured in a head-on crash on Saturday. According to Kansas Highway Patrol, 11 p.m. on Saturday night, 17-year-old male driver and an 18-year-old female passenger were driving southbound on Metcalf when a 2013 Toyota Corolla crossed the center median into oncoming traffic. At the same time, a 44-year-old female driver and a 41-year-old female passenger were traveling in a 2015 Kia Optima in the northbound lanes of Metcalf. The Toyota crossed the median. The 2 cars crashed head-on, according to the Kansas Highway Patrol, and both teens were killed in the crash. And the 44-year-old driver of the Kia was seriously injured. The passenger of the Kia had minor injuries, and the cause of the crash has not yet been released. But that happening late on Saturday night, right in Overland Park.
Number 6.
And last but not least, number 6 on the Frank White showdown today in the Jackson County Legislature. This comes after he vetoed the ordinance from last week saying that he must comply and the county must comply with the Missouri State Tax Commission and roll back the maximum increase on assessments from 2023 to 15%. Frank vetoed that ordinance. So he has basically thumbed his nose at the Missouri State Tax Commission and at his own legislature. Today, the legislature needs to find one more vote to override that veto. Can they do it? We'll ask Sean Smith at 8:30. He's on the Jackson County Legislature on KCMO Talk Radio. There's your top 6 stories in the 6 o'clock hour. Coming up, you know whose fault it is we don't have a new stadium, right? It's Trump's fault. I'll explain why next. It was only a matter of time before some people in Kansas City started blaming Donald Trump for why they're not going to get the new stadium that they desperately want, right? I mean, we knew that was going to come. It was just a matter of when. And to all of those clowns, I say, good morning, 7:05. Hope you had a great Easter, a happy Easter. Of course, the breaking news this morning, Pope Francis dead at the age of 88 years old. But here in Kansas City, Jackson County voters, of course, rejected a stadium tax last April. And now the question is, what are the Royals in particular going to do next? Well, the Star wrote a big piece over the weekend about this, headlined, "The Looming Big Concern That Could Threaten Chiefs and Royals Stadium Efforts." And they write here in paragraph number 3, quote, "President Donald Trump's trade war with China and his whipsaw approach to tariffs on dozens of other countries have sent stock markets plunging. Fear of inflation are rising. And J.P. Morgan, the country's largest bank, places the probability of a recession in 2025 at 60%. Did they ever refer to the stock markets in 2022 and 3 as plunging? Did they, for a newspaper that didn't understand the word inflation for the better part of 4 years, now they're very concerned about it. No, inflation's already happened, okay? Inflation crushed us to the tune of 20% over the last 4 years when you compound those numbers. Fears of inflation are rising? Where you been? You been in a coma since 21? Fear of inflation? Trump's in office because of inflation. Like, literally, the guy is in the White House today because of inflation. Yes, Joe Biden was wildly incompetent in a multitude of ways, but issue number one was inflation. Come on, man. I don't care what he says. That's the truth. Kansas City area elected officials, they write, and civic leaders must now contend with this new, darker economic climate as they seek to secure the future of the Chiefs and Royals in the Metro. Wait, a darker economic climate? If you look at this entire situation, right, and you look at where things are at right now, the one group that you would say has been able to handle and weather the inflation storm has been the wealthiest of the wealthy. They've been able to reap the benefits of the stock market, which has beat inflation over the last few years. And on top of that, guess what? The price of eggs doesn't really impact them. So yes, inflation is part of how the vote went down last April. Don't forget, the vote failed not because of one thing. It didn't fail just because of the crossroads. It didn't fail just because people had issues with the location. It didn't fail just because there is a populist sentiment. It didn't fail just because of inflation, where people said, pound sand, I'm not doing this right now. It was all of those things wrapped into one. But I guess it was only a matter of time before the Kansas City Star said to itself, you know what? We haven't written a piece blaming Trump for why we might not get new stadiums. So let's do that as we reach mid-April of 2025.
They're like connect the dots puzzles, I think, you know?
Yeah. Well, you're right. It's kind of like
a beginning and a conclusion, and then we just try to connect some dots. Might take 32 or 40 or 50.
Well, it's like my 1-year-old. She keeps getting into puzzles now. Mm-hmm. She's getting into puzzles, but they're like 100-piece puzzles that her sisters use that she has no idea what they are. So she'll either try to eat them or she will just push wrong pieces together. That's basically the Kansas City Star right now. They're putting pieces of the puzzle together that have no business fitting together. Yeah. And if they can't figure out how to make them fit, they'll just eat the puzzle pieces and do some drugs before they go about eating them. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. So the Star goes on the note here. Any potential second public vote later this year in Jackson County risks taking place amid a downturn or at the very least continued uncertainty. With or without a public vote, elected officials will confront high-stakes choices about how much public aid they're willing to support for the teams, whether in the form of sales tax revenues or other incentives. Stop right there. We just had local elections, 2 weeks ago tomorrow? Every tax on the ballot passed all over the metro. You had the school tax pass for Kansas City public schools. People voted to raise their property taxes an average of $200 a year for decades-long failures in the Kansas City public schools. You had a public safety tax pass up in Liberty. I think Platte County passed a tax. I mean, taxes passed all over Missouri 2 weeks ago tomorrow. So if you think that the Royals or Chiefs tax, whatever it looks like when the time comes, won't pass because people are concerned about the current economic climate, what's your evidence besides Orange Man bad, and let's figure out how to blame Trump for not having new stadiums?
I know you were talking about the region and the surrounds there, but right in Kansas City, too.
Yes,
the school and the public safety. So
yes,
not an aversion to just taxes in general.
People love apparently taxing themselves, and they'll do it for what they think is the right deal. But this was like a headline story for the Star, and I'm sitting here and I'm saying to myself, I know we're all trying to look for a new angle here, but this is beyond bizarre. They had any potential second public vote amid a downturn will potentially impact a sales tax vote in Jackson County in particular. The Star interviewed a dozen elected officials, civic leaders, economists, academics, and others this week about what a recession would mean for efforts to build a new stadium for one or both teams. Most agreed an economic downturn would make another public vote more difficult, but they were divided on whether it would pose an insurmountable obstacle to winning over a majority of voters. So basically, they don't know. Wow, that's the conclusion of the piece. We're trying to blame Trump. We asked some so-called experts, but there was no obvious conclusion. So we'll just blame Trump.
Now, the beauty of this story is when you hold it up to a mirror, you get Trump backs stadium plans for billionaire friends in Kansas City. Right?
Yes.
It would be the
yes. That's exactly what it would be, right? Trump
behind Clark Hunt's $1 billion.
Clark Hunt's buddy, Donald Trump, helps him build new stadium the public can't afford. Which one is it, guys? Pick your lane here, okay?
In spite of Taylor's protest.
Oh, man, oh, man, oh, man. They cannot get out of their own way with this stuff. They really can't. At the same time, they write in the Star, the Trump administration's aggressive efforts to cancel and claw back federal funding have left other officials questioning the wisdom of dedicating state and local tax dollars towards what are privately run entertainment businesses. That's a good point, but that has nothing to do with Trump. That is a good question to ask. Whether or not public dollars from states and cities should be used to run privately funded or privately run entertainment businesses. Fair question. And it has nothing to do with Trump or his administration. But they've got to figure out a way to connect these dots, like my 1-year-old taking puzzle pieces and sticking them together, followed by eating them. That's what the Star is doing here. They are now at the stage of eating the puzzle pieces in this story.
I like fun with phrases. When do you ever hear or use clawback?
Yes, only with stuff like this.
No, that's exactly.
You're right.
Exactly.
Only
Clawback.
with nonsense like this. That is so true. Clawback. Yeah, clawing back our money that we're printing that we don't even have that is inflating our currency or devaluing our currency and causing inflation. If that's clawing back, give me more. Claw back some more, baby.
The issue is they're not whacking enough.
They're not. I'll stick to it. They are not whacking enough. So true. Coming up, John Patterson is the Missouri Speaker of the House. He will join me right after Bill O'Reilly's morning update. I will ask him for an update on these two teams and also the biggest news that is not getting discussed in Jeff City. I'll ask him that question. No idea on what his answer is going to be, but we'll find out next on KCMO 95.7 FM.
If it's happening in KCMO, it's on KCMO 95.7 FM. Here's Pete Mundo.
Let's go to Missouri Speaker of the House, John Patterson, joining us here on 95.7 FM as they are wrapping up over the next couple of weeks the Missouri legislative session. Top of mind here is what exactly the future may look like for the Kansas City Royals and the Kansas City Chiefs. Mr. Speaker, good morning. Glad you're here on KCMO. A lot of talk about the Royals, obviously, potentially looking up to the Northland and Clay County. Where is the legislature at on the Royals in particular and what you want to see to potentially provide state help and what that location may be for the Royals going forward?
Hi, Pete. Glad to be with you as always. I think, the legislature is going to keep doing what we've said we're going to do, which is provide tax relief to Jackson Countyans. I think that's the main job of the legislature at this point. I do think that Clay County site is attractive for a lot of reasons. The number one being that it would take off half of the load for Jackson County taxpayers and let Clay Countyans take over that. And I think that won't necessarily need legislation, although I think some people are trying to form a sports authority up there, which I'd be in favor of. But let Clay Countyans take the Royals, and I think that is somewhat of an attractive option, and it keeps them in Missouri.
Is that something that right now you are maybe not pushing the team to do, but shall we say encouraging the team to strongly consider?
Well, I haven't encouraged the teams, and I wouldn't presume to do that. I think we're laying out options, and they're looking at all their options. But I certainly think, as I look across the country, and a lot of sports teams are looking for public assistance in funding stadiums, I can't see one where an NFL team and a major league team are trying to do it at the same time. I think that's just because it's too much of a burden for taxpayers. So I think the attractive thing about Clay County is that it splits up that load, but still keeps both teams in Missouri. And I think there's a lot of benefits up there. If you go up to Clay County, I don't think there would be a huge ask of the state, which as a state legislator, that makes life easier for us.
Okay. Now, if Clay Countyans say, well, why do we need to be on the hook for this monetarily? Obviously, that would be up to them to decide. So
Yes,
I know that's not, of course, you represent Jackson County in the Lee Summit area as the Speaker of the House. But how do you make that pitch to Clay Countyans to say, hey, this is worth your tax dollars? What would that potentially look like?
Yeah, I think it would be attractive to Clay Countyans because they're sort of getting something and they can take on a new project. And of course, part of that would be that they would have to go to Clay County taxpayers and see if they want to be part of that. And I think there's reason to think, and I think there's been some polling done that would suggest that Clay Countyans would be interested in that. But again, moving a major league ballpark up to Clay County and having that investment, that development, I think would be attractive, but it ultimately would be up to the taxpayers up there.
John Patterson is here. He is the Speaker of the House of Missouri out of Lee Summit, joining us on KCMO Talk Radio. So do you expect, you mentioned Clay County trying to put together a sports commission. What do you expect to have done by the end of this legislative session that will play a specific role in deciding the location for the future of both of these franchises?
Well, I think legislatively, that might be the only state legislative action that really affects that. But again, we're in terms of keeping the Chiefs, what I've said all along, and I think what Republicans in the legislature have said is we're going to focus on tax relief, whether it's income, capital gains, property tax, personal property, so that I think when taxpayers are again asked, do you want to fund a tax that would help keep the Chiefs in Jackson County, that they know that their property taxes are being taken care of, and then they can make a decision on whether they want to have public funding of Arrowhead, and they'll have that when they're making their decision. So that's really what we're focused on, so that taxpayers can make a decision at some point on keeping the Chiefs.
What is the biggest thing right now as you guys head down the home stretch of this legislative session in Jeff City? What's the biggest thing that you feel like you're working on or have accomplished here that maybe hasn't gotten enough media attention?
Well, I think as we come down the home stretch, I'm really hopeful that we can get a lot of things on property taxes done. Of course, we have a lot of Jackson Countyans taking part in that. You have Carolyn Caton, who has sponsored our legislation that would put on the ballot whether Jackson County can have an elected assessor like every other county in the state. I think that's important we get that done for taxpayers. And then you have Jeff Coleman, also from Jackson County, who has proposed capping property tax increases to 2% and to be the maximum. So those are the kind of things that we're working on. I'm hopeful that we can get both of those things done, but 4 weeks to go, you never know. But that's really what I'm going to be focused on as we close up.
Well, we'll be following and watching, and we appreciate your time, Mr. Speaker. Thanks for being on the show.
Okay. Thanks, Pete. Have a great week.
You as well. That is John Patterson, Missouri Speaker of the House, joining us on 95.7 FM. We're streaming, of course, on a Monday morning on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Download it. All our podcasts are on the app as well, and you can subscribe to that on Apple or Spotify. Coming up, people just can't get enough of their Maryland man, Maryland father. They just, oh, man. They are falling head over heels for the Maryland man, aren't they? And the latest from the Supreme Court is not a good sign. We'll explain why next.
Hey, it's Kevin Keatsman. Stick around. I'm coming up at 10 o'clock right after Pete Mundo on KCMO 95.7 FM.
Got our good friends, as they do each and every Monday morning at Grandma's Catering, bringing in some nice treats this morning. So what do we have this morning, fellas?
Oh, man, we got some bacon, cinnamon rolls, casserole, fruit. It's a good variety.
That is a nice variety on an Easter Monday morning.
Very tasty as well.
Oh, beautiful. Well, you've already eaten it? God, you guys
I had a couple slices of bacon.
You guys are pigs. Unbelievable.
Eating the pigs.
Eating the pigs, acting like pigs. Save some for the rest of us, okay? Well, if you want Grandma's Office Catering to take care of you, you can win a lunch for 20 at your office with Grandma's Catering and their office invasion. Just go to kcmotalkradio.com, click on the contest tab at the top, and you can enter to win lunch for 20 at your office, courtesy of Grandma's Catering. So well done, and you'll even get Mark to show up, and he might eat all the food at your catered luncheon. So that's entirely possible as well.
Yeah, if I get the invite, I might show up.
Trust me, Mark has never turned down a free meal in his life. In his life, he's never turned it down. Reminds me of Vern Lundquist. In your life, with that tiger chip. Mark's never turned it down in his life. So early on Saturday morning, Donald Trump and the administration got slapped down by the Supreme Court. They told the Trump administration not to take any action to deport Venezuelan men based in Texas that it alleges are gang members. So this was all, of course, being done by the administration under what they called the Alien Enemies Act of 1978. And they said, hey, listen, 1798, not 1978. Yeah, John.
I don't remember the year I graduated. I missed that news. Star Wars was out.
John's senior year of high school. No. 1798. That's not 1978. I got my dyslexia moment in the morning here out of the way on KCMO. So back to 1798, this Alien Enemies Act has been in place. And the administration used that to say, listen, we're deporting you out of the country under this Aliens Enemies Act of 1798. Well, the Supreme Court early Saturday morning said, yeah, you can't do that. So this, of course, is going to bring up a host of legal challenges. And the thing I keep coming back to is that you now have the left's position here being federal judges, or in this case, the Supreme Court, having the unilateral authority to overrule anything that the Trump administration does. Like, that's kind of where we're at right now, right? It's not about Congress, not about the House, the Senate, none of that. It's about whether it's the Supreme Court or, in many cases, just district court judges basically telling the duly elected president what he can and cannot do. Now, you think about what the Constitution actually says. It says that the branches are equal. But what you're seeing play out in recent weeks is that's not the case. You are seeing now, very clearly, the judiciary is superior and is more powerful. The judiciary branch is now basically directing the people through the president on telling him what he can and can't do. But that is not what the Constitution says. The Constitution says that these branches are equal, which means that these judges, in many cases, do not have the authority to override Trump whenever they feel like it. Supreme Court, I understand that's a different beast. And this lawsuit was brought by the ACLU. Is there a group that has not earned its name in recent years more than the American Civil Liberties Union? The ACLU hasn't fought on behalf of Americans in years, for crying out loud. Now they're fighting on behalf of alleged gang members from Venezuela. The lawsuit, the ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union, is the one who brought this lawsuit up, got it all the way to the Supreme Court to make sure that Venezuelans are not deported from the country. And they hang on to the ACLU name. That's truly unbelievable. But it's also the place that we find ourselves in the world that we find ourselves in right now.
It's the Alleged Criminals Liberation Unit. Actually is. Right?
Yes. Oh, it's so good. So this was posted by Bill Ackman over the weekend. And Bill's a big hedge fund guy. Used to be just, your run-of-the-mill Democrat on Wall Street, and now he has come around. The extremism on the left when it comes to their anti-Israel sentiments is what drove him to the right. And he posted this on Saturday morning after the Supreme Court decision. I thought it was very well said. A nation in which one administration can allow millions of unvetted illegal migrants into the country, but requires that a court vet each deportation decision in an individually adjudicated case, will soon lose the values of our democratic system and what it was intended to preserve. Right? And it's perfect because you had for 4 years, I don't know what the number is. No one really knows. 10, 15, upwards of 20 million people come across the border illegally. No one did anything about it. No one really could do anything about it. Biden was flying them all over the country, and, Republicans complained about it, but there wasn't a lot that they really could do about it. Now Trump's like, okay, we're going to reverse course here. We're going to deport these people. We know they're here illegally. What their gang affiliation is, you can debate that part of it, but in the end, it doesn't matter because we know they're here illegally. No one's denying that. And you've had district court judges all the way up to Supreme Court now saying, nah, can't do that. No way, no how. Sorry. And it's like, well, hold on a second here. You had a guy that for 4 years just said, come on in, laws be damned. Supreme Court couldn't, district court couldn't, or wouldn't do anything about it. But now if you want to reverse course, after you are the duly elected president of the United States, you're told, oh, pump the brakes there, big fella. Not so fast, in the words of Lee Corso, who retired last week. Not so fast, my friend. You just hang tight. And, of course, the encapsulation of this is what's happening with the so-called Maryland man. Has anyone seen his Chiefs hat since late last week, since he was rocking that Chiefs hat sitting there with Chris Van Halen from Maryland? I'm wondering if he's got another Chiefs hat coming our way or some kind of Chiefs paraphernalia he's going to be wearing next time he's in public.
Yeah, I haven't seen the Chiefs hat, but I also haven't seen him. So
yeah, no one's seen him. I'm just wondering if he's trying to embrace America's team. He's looking for sympathy back here at home by rocking some Chiefs gear. I get what he's going for there, but listen, that was just beyond bizarre last week. To watch a sitting U.S. senator look longingly into the eyes of a known wife beater, an alleged gang member, and an illegal immigrant, as if, this individual has brought anything to the table on behalf of the United States of America and his state of Maryland. One of the most bizarre interactions that you will ever see. And Chris Van Hollen goes on all the Sunday shows because the guy is desperately seeking attention. I don't know if he's running for president. People insist that he is. He's still a nobody. And dude, if your claim to fame is being Kilmar's buddy in jail in El Salvador, I'm not sure it's going to work out for you like the way you think it will. Unless, I suppose, the ACLU may give you that big endorsement that you're waiting for. He did admit over the weekend on Fox News Sunday, which aired yesterday at 10 a.m. here on KCMO, that the taxpayer paid for this.
Who did pay for this trip?
This was an officially cleared, congressional trip, cleared on a bipartisan basis. Yes, like every other trip.
You can hear the hesitation in his voice there. Yes.
Obfuscation.
Yeah, I mean, that's it to a T right there is what that is. This is their man. This is who they're latching onto. This is who they're using right now at this moment in time in American history to be the face of their party. They don't have, let's be clear, there is no face right now for the party. Obama's nowhere to be found. I don't know where Obama is. Now, I don't even blame him. I think even Obama's like, man, these guys are losing their marbles. I got to take a step back. No one's in charge. There is no face. And now the most talked about guy in the entire party is a no-name senator from Maryland who's going down to El Salvador to kiss the ring of a guy who 24 hours prior, news reports come out that he was, whacking his wife around, beating his wife. And I'm telling you, the photos, man, I don't know the last time. I mean, listen, I have a great marriage, but I don't know the last time Kate looked at me like Senator Van Hollen looked at Kilmar in some of those photos. Holy smokes, he was like head over heels for him. Hey, jeez. It was like a wedding photo looking at that guy, the way he was looking at Kilmar. Find somebody to love you the way that Chris Van Hollen loves himself some Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Just try to not get beat up with a boot while you're at it there, Chris. At least that's what the police report said. Coming up, the good, the bad, and the ugly from the weekend. We will get to next on KCMO 95.7 FM. Now, we are approaching May, and finally, looks like we're in the spring weather here. So you're thinking about those springtime projects. And right now, you want to do that tub or shower replacement you've been thinking about for maybe months at this point. You just got out of the shower this morning. You're listening on the Google Home, on the Alexa, on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Well, you can get $2,000 off in 12 months, same as cash, when you do a tub or shower replacement with The Plumbing Pro here in Kansas City. They are the local alternative to all the national tub and shower replacements that you see all over your television, and they will have Kansas City folks right there with you every step of the way. You can call them when they open up here at 8 o'clock at 816-763-8200, or the easiest way, their website, theplumbingpro.com. That's theplumbingpro.com. And just tell them that we sent you. Ask for Pete's deal. Get $2,000 off and 12 months, same as cash, when you do a tub or shower replacement with The Plumbing Pro. That's theplumbingpro.com.
You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM.
Rolling till 8 o'clock on KCMO. Pete Mundo with you on a Easter Monday morning. Glad you're here on 95.7 FM, and let's roll it.
It's time for the good, the bad, and the ugly on KCMO Talk Radio. Now on 95.7 FM.
The good from the weekend is not just the arrest of the Tesla arsonist in Kansas City, the alleged Tesla arsonist in Kansas City, but the statement from Attorney General Pam Bondi. So they arrested a Parkville resident who was attending UMass Boston on Friday after this individual, Owen McIntyre, allegedly lit a couple of Tesla Cybertrucks on fire over there on State Line Road about a month ago. And Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, put out a statement after charging McIntyre with one count of unlawful possession of an unregistered destructive device and one count of malicious damage by fire of any property used in interstate commerce. She says here in the statement, "Let me be extremely clear to anyone who still wants to firebomb a Tesla property, you will not evade us. You will be arrested. You will be prosecuted. You will spend decades behind bars. It is not worth it. Crimes have consequences." Now, that's a foreign concept to many based on how the past few years have gone in this country, especially in Kansas City, where it has been lawless for far too long. But Pam Bondi and the DOJ are bringing that back. And this isn't really about the Cybertruck. I happen to think it's a hideous-looking car. It is about people who are destroying property because they do not like somebody who the duly elected president of the United States has lawfully and legally appointed to try to trim the fat in the federal budget. And this was the second of as many arrests last week when it comes to Tesla dealerships around the country dealing with some of these acts of domestic terrorism. So that statement in and of itself by Pam Bondi is just such a welcomed statement. After half a decade of insanity where people got to pick and choose whether or not they liked the law, right, based on who was breaking the law. And that's got to stop. Whether it's, January 6th stuff or it's Molotov cocktails at Tesla dealers to Cybertrucks. Either way, it's got to end. It's got to end. The bad from the weekend. Well, on Friday, Trump was doing a press conference, and he starts talking about the background of Kilmar, the newest Chiefs fan, as he's dubbed. And Kilmar Abrego Garcia, of course, is down there in El Salvador. He's been dubbed the Maryland man, the Maryland father. He's been the most talked about guy in America, amazingly, over the last week or so. And Trump starts getting into this guy's background a little bit, right? And he's doing this press conference at the White House on Good Friday. And it was pretty informative stuff. Right in the middle of it, take a listen to this. Right as he starts going into this guy's background, MSNBC cuts away from the press conference.
In 2019.
Here we go.
In 2019, Garcia was issued a deportation order. Two separate judges affirmed Garcia was a member of MS-13, which is a gang that may be even worse.
We've been watching President Donald Trump there swearing in the new administrator of the CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, Dr. Mehmet Oz, during this conversation.
So suddenly Trump starts talking about something that, I guess was not part of what they were actually dipping into the press conference for, which was Dr. Oz's appointment. But how about the timing of the cutaway there from MSNBC? Right as Trump starts probably giving facts on the case to an audience that doesn't know anything about the facts of the case. Most of the MSNBC audience is going to be the crowd that has the "In This House We Believe" sign in their front yard that is highly, highly virtuous in terms of how they view themselves and probably doesn't know any of this information. Now, of course, they would never let Kilmar stay in their house, just like the Martha's Vineyard hypocrites, but they like to portray themselves as great virtue signalers and very empathetic characters. So then when Trump starts rolling out some of the information on this guy and his background,
MSNBC is like, well, let's get back to some other stuff around here. We're not going to talk about this any longer because this is definitely not worth your time. We would not want you to know these things about this individual that we have not shared with you on our TV network. That was clear as day in terms of what they were attempting to achieve with that cutaway there on MSNBC.
Fake news.
There was a panic in the earpieces.
Oh, yeah.
Cut.
Get out of there. Cut. Get out of there. No. Abort.
Break. We got to break.
Oh, my goodness. And then the ugly from the weekend is Frank White. On Friday, it was an all-time news dump of a Friday by Jackson County Executive Frank White, who decided that he was going to reject the ordinance passed by the Jackson County Legislature last week that said you must comply with the 2023 assessment decision by the Missouri State Tax Commission and cap the 23 assessments at a maximum of 15%. Frank rejected that. He vetoed that. Why? Well, I believe he waited till Good Friday to do it because the legislature reconvenes today, today. And they need one more vote of the 9 to override the veto. So Frank said, I'll wait as long as I can. I'll veto this. And that only gives them Easter weekend to try to flip one of the 4 no votes to override my veto. It was very strategic. And it is horrendous what this administration, this Frank White administration, continues to do to the taxpayer of Jackson County. It is offensive. It is now borderlining on illegal based on what the state tax commission has demanded of this county executive. And he continues to thumb his nose at not just his own constituents, but frankly, the rule of law. And we'll get a preview on what today's meeting is going to look like and what could be next, and whether or not the Attorney General may get involved in what's going on in Jackson County at 8:35, where we will talk with Sean Smith, Jackson County lawmaker on KCMO. Coming up, speaking of property taxes, what other jurisdiction could be giving away the farm? We'll tell you who right after the news on 95.7 FM KCMO. We're always getting texts into the show at 913-408-7957, but this one made it for me on an Easter Monday morning. Glad you're here on 95.7 FM. Pete, want to let you guys know you picked up a new listener. I used to listen to 610 Sports, but they suck now. And my 32-year-old son turned me on to you guys. The show is great.
Such a nice man.
I guess he's
Very
done,
well done
with Basset Hound Bob.
Bow wow wow yibby yo yibby yay. Bow wow yibby yo yibby yay. Bow wow wow yibby yo yibby.
Oh, well, that's very nice. And when we get something like that, I got to just throw it out there on the air and read them once in a while because a lot of texts, most texts just can't make it on the air. I'd be reading texts all day. But when you get one like that, got to share it. Made my Monday, so thank you. Now, remember last week we were telling you about Project Turtle in Overland Park? It was the secret name for the secret company that is planning to take over the Sprint campus. I don't know if they were big fans of Entourage to name it Project Turtle or what the deal is there, but a Friday report suggested that the company Fiserv, not Pfizer, Fiserv, Fiserv, a Milwaukee-based Fortune 500 financial technology company, is the firm behind Project Turtle. It would be a $125 million project estimated to bring in 2,000 new high-paying jobs to the area. According to the Kansas City Business Journal, Fiserv conducted a nationwide search to select a site for its regional headquarters called Project Turtle and decided on Overland Park, beating out other cities such as Nashville. The company would lease about 420,000 square feet of existing office space. The campus was previously home to Sprint's global headquarters. The company expects to hire 2,000 full-time employees by March of 2030 with an average salary of $125,000. Talk about another squeeze on the housing market in this area.
Couldn't they got by with $15 an hour?
No, I guess not.
I guess not.
Yeah, guess not.
There'll be a lot of people bailing on Dollar General now to apply for those gigs, I think.
So if this comes to fruition, of course, there is a 10-year property tax rebate that is being requested here. That's part of the incentive package that has been put together by Overland Park, city staff, the Chamber of Commerce, and the Economic Development team. Now, I'm sitting here looking at Overland Park, and you have a city that has increased its budget astronomically in recent years. You look at Overland Park, and I pulled it up this morning. Their 2025 budget is $467 million. Guess what it was back in 2020? It was $305 million. The Overland Park city budget is up 50% in the last half a decade. That's insane. And how are they doing it? Mostly through, in many cases, property taxes, right? I mean, yes, it's grown. You get more sales tax dollars. One of the little-known secrets about inflation is that inflation going up actually helps out the government coffers because if your fill in the blank that you buy in Overland Park goes up 20%, well, guess what? The sales tax revenue is up 20%. So I get it. They're getting more money into their coffers. But when you're a city that has seen a 55% increase in your budget over the last 5 years, I'm sorry, you're not being a good steward of the taxpayer dollars here, John.
Well, it doesn't jibe with the pool closings in recent years. We can't afford to keep a pool open.
I know. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
That's
what
a good
you're
point.
telling me now, I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah. $304 million was the proposed budget for 2020. Now they're up to $467 million. And then saying to a company, come in here and we'll give you a property tax abatement for 10 years. I mean, how insulting is that to the homeowner in Overland Park? A company with, tens of billions of dollars in annual revenue, net income in the billions, saying, sure, here's a property tax rebate to a renter when they have increased property taxes on residents astronomically over the last few years.
I am but a simple man, but if that were an open field and you're building from scratch, maybe I could understand.
Yes.
This is already built. What are we paying for? Remodeling?
Yeah, exactly.
New cubicles?
New paint on the walls? Exactly right. And that's what I've heard from developers. Like when you're breaking ground, especially with the cost of building today, I get it. You need something on the front end to justify the back end. But the campus is there. The parking garages are there. The buildings are physically there. What are you doing outside of insulting your own taxpayer here with all this? And of course, when you go to the Overland Park website, this is the headline from last September. City Council approves 2025 budget. Overland Park budget is $467 million. That's an 8.5% increase over the 2024 budget. Wouldn't it be nice if you could increase your budget in your house just at your will by 8.5%? That's not happening for most Overland Park residents, even well-to-do neighborhoods. However, they write here, the city's property tax rate is not increasing. It will remain flat at 14.525 mils. This is what they always do. They never create it so it's revenue neutral. But Overland Park, like many parts of the country, including most parts of Kansas City, have seen an increase in the value of homes over the last few years. So they can get away with this charade of we're not increasing your property tax rate, knowing full well they're increasing your property taxes because the value of your home went up. That's the name of the game. What they should do is lower the mill to make it closer to revenue neutral, or at least only increase it, let's say, with the rate of inflation, which over the last year is what? Maybe 3.5%, somewhere around there. They don't want to do that. That's how you end up with a city that has gone from a budget of $300 million half a decade ago to $468 million. Overland Park is on an unsustainable path with its spending. And as the second biggest municipality in the region, that matters. Even Kansas City isn't this dumb with its money over the last half a decade. And that is saying something. When Kansas City, Missouri, has arguably been more responsible with its own budget than Overland Park has been, you've got a problem in OP. And here's what's potentially on the verge of happening. Yes, of course, they can build, more apartments in every corner and redevelop and rezone and do all that. That is true. But if there ever is a housing downturn, and I don't think we'll ever see anything like 2008, at least not anytime soon, because there still is such demand for housing that even if there would be potential issues with the housing market, there is such a demand for first-time homeowners from first-time homeowners who are like millennials and Gen Zers right now that this is not going to happen anytime soon, and it's never going to be like 2008. But if there is a downturn and people's property values go down, what does Overland Park then do? Are they going to increase the mill levy to maintain, at the very least, the property tax dollars that they have been taking from their residents? They may have to do it to keep up with their insane spending levels. And then in comes potentially Project Turtle, a.k.a. Fiserv, not Pfizer, Fiserv, a financial technology company, to take over Spring Campus. And they say, here's a property tax abatement. Wow. What a deal. I guess the only way to get a deal around Overland Park these days is if you're a Fortune 500 company. Otherwise, pound sand. That's the message. 913-408-7957 on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM, streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app as always. On the text line, Pete, preach. It's happening all over Johnson County. We, the taxpayer, are funding all this. No, you're right. I mean, it's not unique to Overland Park. They're just the worst abusers of this. But it is true that Olathe has got similar problems. Lenexa has similar problems. They are spending at levels that are unsustainable. And that's where the state could have stepped in here this past legislative session in a much more emphatic way and said enough's enough. And for whatever reason in Topeka, they couldn't get the big things done. But I'm sure the people running for governor in the legislature will tell you they did. Sean Smith will be here, bottom of the hour, Jackson County, on that mess with Frank White on KCMO Talk Radio. In the meantime, this is quite an angle on Doge and its impacting Kansas City. Speaking of crunching the numbers, I mean, my goodness. Talk about a little too much juice here. They are really trying to sell you on something that is not true. We'll get to it next on KCMO.
Dave Ramsey here, and you're listening to Pete Mundo on KCMO Talk Radio, now airing on FM at 95.7.
You might have stumbled upon this piece by accident. Hopefully you didn't. That way you saved yourself the headache, and we can just make fun of it here on KCMO at 8:20 on a Monday. But you might have stumbled upon this piece. The Associated Press wrote it, but it made its way into Fortune's website. I saw it on National Panhandler Radio, courtesy of KCUR here in Kansas City. It was an article in the Associated Press written by Ryan Foley, and the headline is, Kansas City has long been a federal hub. The pain from Doge's cuts is everywhere. Now, let's go through the numbers before we get to the sob stories here. According to the article, we've got about 30,000 federal jobs here around Kansas City, right? The federal government is the largest employer in the region, the article states. One longtime Kansas City economic researcher said he believes the region could lose 6,000 good-paying federal jobs, which in turn would wipe out thousands of others in service industries. Now, I would be curious to know who the economic researcher is and what information he has on Elon Musk and Doge and President Trump to come up with that $6,000 job number. Because every number they have estimated in the media from the so-called experts has been wildly wrong, John, by a mile.
Not who, what, when, where. Woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Yeah, might. Like,
Yep.
they just make up these
could.
numbers. It
Yes.
might happen.
Mhm.
Just watch out. This is
What do
what
they say about monkeys flying out of wood?
I'm telling you, whatever they're estimating is going to be wrong. But here's the thing. They're not going to be doing enough.
The issue is they're not whacking enough.
They are not whacking enough. We have lost, 116 jobs?
Yeah, that was the original article, supposed to be from the IRS.
Yes.
And there are more agencies in town than the IRS, but that's what we've got reported on based on the media's woulda, coulda, shoulda reporting.
116.
100 in Kansas City, 16 in Lee Summit was the original story I read that day.
So 30,000 workers who are employed by the federal government around Kansas City. And the only numbers that we have right now are about 116. And there's a couple hundred others, as the article notes, who have taken buyouts and are expected to leave the agency in the coming weeks. So we're up to about 300, but 2/3 of those are willingly leaving, right? So that's theoretically people who are ready to retire or they're ready to do something else in their careers. So I know this is a novel concept to those who think the government is the end-all be-all, but there is life after government. Wait, no, that's not possible. That is not possible for there to be life after government, but I guess there is for at least some of these folks.
Our new number is 5884. Do your cause right now. 6,000 jobs could be lost. We've only lost 116. We're going to need more.
Yeah.
Phone in your resignation now.
Yeah.
5884 to get to our goal. From the AP article, as it were.
Oh, is that what so what is the 5884?
6,000 jobs could be lost.
Oh,
so
we only
far
have
we've lost 116.
We got a 5,888 for
I'm not counting the
888.
resignations,
Okay.
but those weren't reported on as an official number in our media, so I can't quite use that statistic.
Okay.
So we could round it up, but we're way behind, and we're going to need more people to resign right now.
Yeah. Give us a call. We'll get you in touch with the IRS. 913-408-7957.
You got the FBI. I don't think there's any cuts coming there, so that's part of our 30,000.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if all of our agencies are getting cuts.
Well, who knows? It's all speculation. That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
These people don't care about actually following what's happened. They just want to fearmonger into what happens if Kansas City loses more federal jobs. And the answer is this: Kansas City will be fine. That's the answer. If you think what makes Kansas City great is our tens of thousands of government jobs, you don't give this town enough credit. I'm not saying those who work for the federal government don't help make it a nice place to be and a nice place to live. But if you think that it hinges, if a metro of 2.5 million people hinges on the government employing 30,000 people, then you don't actually have any respect for the city or the region. You think that we're a community that's simply propped up by the federal government, and that's not true. And it's inherently unfair to, by the way, the real economic engine in a metro of this size, that is small business, medium business, and most importantly, private business. Not the federal government, not the state of Missouri, not the state of Kansas. Yeah, we need them all. I understand we need a functioning government. We need federal employees. We need state employees and city employees. But if you think that they're what makes this town great, you're kidding yourself. And you're being wildly unfair to the people who pay the bill, which are the rest of us.
Trying to conjure images of Detroit after the audio industry goes.
Oh,
down,
I know.
right?
I know.
Oh, it's going to be desolate.
Hollowed out homes. We're all going to look like, certain parts of the east side of Kansas City. You just watch out. People are going to be fleeing this community left and right. That's not going to happen. Okay? It's all fear mongering. And it's based in nothing. That's the worst part of it. It's based in an unnamed expert who won't even go on the record in an article with the Associated Press. I almost called him the Associated Depressed, which I think is what Mark Levin calls him, which is an outstanding nickname for the AP. But this is the kind of stuff that, NPR, I get why they run the story because they're very concerned about their own funding. And speaking of what needs to be whacked like yesterday, NPR needs to be at the top of the list. My goodness. Just the thought of your government dollars funding National Panhandler Radio remains insane to me. I'm so glad that we are smoking them every morning here on KCMO. It does bring me great joy to kick their butts because some of their employees love to troll me on social media, and I 99% of the time ignore them. Once in a while, I have a weak moment, and I feel the need to respond. Once in a while. What are you laughing at in there, Mark? What do you find so funny? Once in a while, I feel the need to respond, but most of the time, I stay strong, and I ignore them. Because we just keep kicking their butts left and right. And I'm happy to be doing that. I'm glad we're doing that. It wasn't the case when we got here 7 years ago. But I'm like, man, the sooner you guys are defunded, the better off Kansas City's going to be. And they can keep getting their real news from us here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. And as always, streaming on that KCMO Talk Radio app. Because here's the novel concept. We just ask you to support the businesses that support us. That's it. We're not going to be handing out bumper stickers for $5 donations outside of the building. I promise you that will never happen. Coming up, let's go to the other side of state line from Kansas to Jackson County, where Frank White, may get the attorney general involved in his future. We'll explain it next.
From the nation's heartland, it's Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
If you didn't hear it and you're hearing it for the first time, maybe you were off and out of town for the Easter weekend. On Friday, Jackson County Executive Frank White vetoed an ordinance from the Jackson County Legislature saying that he must comply and the county must comply with the Missouri State Tax Commission that said you got to roll back the 2023 assessments to a maximum of 15%. And Frank vetoed that legislation on Friday going into the holiday weekend. The legislature is set to get back to business today. Sean Smith is part of that. He joins us on KCMO. So, Sean, good morning. What's next?
Good morning, Pete. Well, hopefully today we'll have one more vote go along with us to override that veto. That would be nice. There's a block of 4 legislators who are a minority, but nonetheless have prevented a lot of legislation from moving forward because they consistently side with Frank White instead of the majority of the legislature. So hopefully one of them will switch today and they will override the veto, and then we can move forward with doing the right thing by the taxpayers, which we've been waiting for 2 years for the White administration to do.
Well, those individuals are Jeannie Lauer, Megan Marshall, Charlie Franklin, and Jalen Anderson. How do you feel about one of them joining the majority here coming up later today?
You know, it's really tough to say, Pete. I mean, the fact is that the county executive chose to wait until late on Friday, a holiday, Good Friday, to issue the veto. I, of course, reached out to all of them, but being a holiday weekend, I can't say that I got a lot of constructive feedback. I really don't know how it'll go. I know there's been an awful lot of folks that have tried to reach out to him via phone and email, and I hope that they're listening. I really do.
Would you suggest to Jackson County residents to obviously politely reach out to these individuals and tell them to get on the right side of this whole deal and look out for their constituents?
I do, and I think the most important thing, I think the reason I'm most passionate about this is because I've heard stories from people where this has just literally devastated their lives. I think people that have those stories that are still struggling, even now, to get their 2023 appeal heard, even after having to pay 2 years of inflated and now we find out unlawful taxes, those folks that are really getting hurt are the ones I'd really like to see reach out to my colleagues and let them know what their story is, because there's some really tough stories out there. And I just find it hard to believe that as human beings, my colleagues could hear those stories and not try to help those folks out.
Yeah, you would think so. So Sean Smith, Jackson County legislator, is here on KCMO 95.7 FM. I mean, this is just insane because the 2025 assessments, of course, are going to be coming out soon. But to backtrack, where are we at? Is there anything new you can share with us on the Frank White recall effort?
Yeah, so the recall effort probably has enough signatures. We've still got about 30,000 being held hostage by a private company. There was an organization called Democracy in Action that agreed to pay that private company, and so far they have not. I'm not sure exactly what that's all about, whether it's about raising funds. I imagine that's part of it, but also timing, trying to figure out what that organization's preferred timing is, I suppose. I encourage people to still continue to sign those petitions if you see them out and about. And especially if you sign between November and January, that's when we had people out privately gathering signatures that were on a paid basis. And those are the signatures that are being held hostage. So those signatures might not ever get submitted. So there's nothing wrong with signing again, especially if you signed in that time window. And hopefully we'll get this thing over the goal line. And in the meantime, I have a backup plan. In my mind, there's several causes that the Attorney General ought to consider removing Frank White. So today I'll be asking some of my legislative colleagues to join me in requesting his review of things like the fact that Frank clearly has not devoted himself full-time to the job as required by our charter, clearly directed the staff to upload the 2024 budget, which was unlawful, and now we've been spending money unlawfully because he, vetoed the budget that he recommended, but also because he directed staff to upload a budget that hadn't been legally adopted. So there's a number of causes, and the latest, of course, his veto of an ordinance that simply says follow the law. to me, tells us all we need to know about his intention and his disregard for the law.
So would you want the Attorney General, can the Attorney General remove the county executive?
That's a great question. We know that he exercised that power with the prosecutor over in St. Louis. He's exercised that power with a couple other local officials who weren't fulfilling their duties. So I think that he has the authority to, I get out over my skis when I start talking about the ins and outs of the law because I'm not a lawyer. But I mean, if I look at the history, he certainly had the ability to do it to a prosecutor and to other local officials. I would hope he would look and see if he has the authority to do it here.
It would seem to me that if you're talking about somebody who has not been treating this as a full-time job, normally with politicians, that's a gray area. But if the guy is on a road trip with the Kansas City Monarchs instead of showing up to a county legislative meeting, I don't know how much more clear it can get.
Yeah, so for over a year, Mr. Abarca, one of my colleagues, has asked the chief of staff the whereabouts of the county executive and has never gotten a concrete answer. That's a pretty good indicator. The other good indicator is I sought to do some investigation myself. I requested data from our IT staff that I felt like would validate whether we had ghost employees, people who don't show up for work, including Mr. White. I also wanted to review how we were using the land and property and buildings that we own, and they denied me access to that. That's also wrong. So if there's any attorneys out there that want to help me work on that, I need to subpoena that information from them. And it's information that I'm clearly entitled to as a legislator. And they tried to say, well, for privacy reasons, we can't give you that information, as though I was a member of the public. I'm not a member of the public. I'm part of the supervisory body for this administration. And they've consistently tried to conceal information from us that would help us do our job.
How about this? I'll buy a ticket to the Monarchs game. Opening night is on May 9th. And when I see him there on first base, I'll take a photo of it, and there's your evidence. I don't know. Maybe I'm a simple man, but I don't know if that helps. I'm just happy to be a team player here however I can.
I appreciate that. And maybe a road trip, too, some place where he travels with the team, as I understand it. And understand that goes back at least to 2023, when we were in the middle of this property tax crisis, and the 2024 season, when this was still ongoing, very much so. So, I mean, it's not new, and it just is very apparent to me that the man's not doing his job.
All right. Well, Sean Smith, we'll be watching today. It's going to be a big day for the Jackson County Legislature, and we appreciate you keeping us posted here on KCMO.
Thanks, Pete.
All right. Sean Smith, good stuff. Thanks to him for his time. So their first road trip for the Monarchs, where, of course, Frank Wright is the first base coach, is coming up the weekend of May 16th. They hit the road to take on the Sioux City Explorers. Big showdown that weekend against Sioux City. Off day on Monday the 19th, followed up by a 3-game set against the old Lincoln Salt Dogs.
There we go.
So that's going to be a barn burner. Watch those parlays for that week against the Salt Dogs, all right? Mark, take it easy for that road trip. It's going to be a tough road trip for the boys.
Yeah, not sure where to start with that one.
yeah. Just take a step back. Don't have to bet everything, Mark, all right? Pick and choose your spots.
Trying to get him off South Shore Railcats. But so far, no luck.
Well, I'll, you know what? Maybe we'll do a road trip that week, fellas. We'll go up to Sioux City, travel with the boys down to Lincoln, and on Monday, I guess that would be May the 14th, assuming there's a Jackson County legislative body meeting that day, if I can catch a photo of Frank at, Hilton in Lincoln, that'll be all the proof we need for how he's got to be doing his day job, where the taxpayer's paying him, what, $150,000 or something like that? I mean, it's not exactly chump change. But, hey, the Monarchs are calling, all right? Coming up next, there is a neighborhood in Kansas City that has been dealing with crime for a long time. But things got much worse over the weekend when innocent homeowners had bullet holes coming through their property. We'll tell you where and what happened coming up on 95.7 FM KCMO.
Stream Mundo in the morning on the KCMO Talk Radio app.
Waldo continues to get hit pretty hard by the increase in property crimes, and now that property crime in Waldo in particular is turning violent. So this came over the weekend from Fox 4. Here's the report of what was happening in Waldo, where suddenly people are wondering if they can even go outside their homes because of car break-ins that are happening.
People who live in the area tell Fox 4 one neighbor noticed people breaking into multiple cars in the early morning hours Thursday and shouted at them to stop. The thieves responded with gunfire.
Immediately called the cops, which unfortunately it took them a while to get there. They found probably 20 casings in the road. And so then they were walking around trying to figure out where all those bullets went. And so 2 of them went into my car, which caused about $1,200 worth of damage, unfortunately.
Bullet holes can be seen on the inside and outside of Marlene Stanley's house. She describes what happened Thursday as terrifying.
I don't know. I think the big thing, I can't get the mindset of human life being so expendable. Like, it's a life, it's like you're breaking into a car.
All right, I'm going to stop right there because that lady clearly doesn't get what's going on here. She is just totally out to lunch. We are beyond the whole, I can't believe people would do this. Oh my goodness, why would people do such a thing? It's a human life. Why would you take a human life over breaking into a vehicle? Okay, these are criminals and these are thugs that do not care about human life. Stop trying to apply common sense to it and just figure out how to make sure that you have the right leadership, the right police department, and the right prosecutor who is going to do something about it. But the lady on the couch, and the couch was stuck in 1968, I'll add that too, which might have been where her mindset was at as well as an ex-hippie, is like, oh, we just need some peace and love around here and everything's going to be fine. I just can't fathom the mindset. It doesn't matter. The mindset for Waldo residents needs to be, we're sick of this. We're fed up. Our council and our mayor's office needs to react in a much stronger way than they have been for property crimes. And we're going to clean this up as quickly as we can. Waldo's a nice neighborhood, right? Waldo's a nice place to live. You don't buy a home in Waldo and expect that you're going to have bullets flying through your windows late on a Friday or Saturday night because you've got criminals trying to steal vehicles. And then when people show up on the front porch and say, knock it off, they're firing their weapons at you. And they're hitting other homes in the process as well. That's not what people buy into Waldo for. It's not what they expect. And it's what's happening. And the residents who are going on TV, they have got to take a much different approach. This I can't believe people are doing this. This babe in the woods routine is not the message that you want to be sending from Waldo. It needs to be, we need efficiency. We need effective policing. We need more patrol. We need more officers. We need good, solid prosecutors. And we need a city council that is going to put its foot down on the nonsense. That's what we need.
And nobody threatened you. They just told you to stop. So how in your mind, what does it take to get you to the point where you think it's okay to shoot that?
Stanley has lived in the neighborhood for 8 years and has never experienced something like this before.
I've always felt so safe, and it's now, my son doesn't even want my grandkids to come spend the night, and I don't blame him, and it's breaking my heart. I don't want to sell my house. I love my house. I've put so much work into it.
Neighbors want to send this message to other victims of property crime.
Which is why I posted on our neighborhood page is we all know this is happening. Just call the police. Don't even begin to stop them because they're armed.
Yeah, they're armed, and hope the cops show up within a half hour too. You just gotta kind of cross your fingers on that as well. That's a bad look all around. Everything about it is just an absolutely awful look. And you've got, I'm looking at it right here. I was just curious. You got dozens of homes for sale right now in the Waldo neighborhood. And a lot of them, I'm looking here, are getting price cuts.
Now, that's happening in the market in general because interest rates are still stubbornly high. Market might be softening a little bit. But I'm just looking right now, dozens of homes. And you're seeing price cuts left and right. I got one here, $550,000, $35,000 price cut late last week. Let's see, another $10,000 price cut on this home listed at $279,000. $10,000 price cut on this one for $285,000. Like, I'm just going down the list. $209,000 home price cut of $10,000. So you got this home that's been sitting there for 64 days. I mean, that's a long time to be sitting on the market right now. So this is happening all over that neighborhood. And obviously it's a major problem for the city council, but you know who else should care about this? The professional sports teams. As they potentially get on the verge of asking for more money from the taxpayer, we know how that vote went last year. And I know it would be a Jackson County vote or a Clay County vote for the Royals. It would be both counties. But those teams should care about this because right now, you want to get the average citizen on your side to say, yes, Royals, yes, Chiefs, I will give you more of my sales tax money at a time when people are feeling the pinch, 5 years of inflation now. In Kansas City in particular, they'll look at the situation and say, the crime is up tremendously. My life as a Kansas City resident may not be as good as it was 5 years ago. And I got the billionaire franchises asking for money. The teams have to be aware of that. There has to be some consideration to that angle. And I understand there's an aloofness to being a sports owner that comes with the territory. Like, I get it. You're not going to necessarily resonate with the average guy or gal, and that's fine. I mean, it's just how the world is. But acknowledging this and being aware of this will help both of these teams cross the finish line to get their intended goal, which is obviously going to be taxpayer monies. And whether that's getting more involved politically, that's at least publicly acknowledging what Kansas City residents are dealing with right now, whether it's policing issues, prosecution issues, crime issues in general, like that will go a long way. I know these teams want to stay apolitical, but let's be honest. They're political behind the scenes. They just don't want to be publicly political. But when you're asking for this level of government involvement through the taxpayer, you kind of gave up the right to be apolitical. You have to lean into this thing right now and say, you know what, we'll stand with the average Kansas Cityan. We understand some of the pain you've been dealing with the last few years, really since 2020 in particular, and maybe we'll try to help right or wrong here. Maybe we'll try to make sure this city council is a little more competent next time around. And that can be through privately funded PACs. It doesn't have to be like a check from the owners to say, hey, we're going to make sure the right people get into office. Same thing with the Jackson County legislature. The amount of incompetency, I mean, you can see it in the interviews with these individuals. Jackson County and Kansas City is a who's who of people who failed to run for student council government in 8th grade and are finally getting their jollies. That's what you're dealing with. It's just not serious people for the most part. And then you wonder why the city and the county are in the kind of shape that they're in. Coming up next hour, we will tell you about a great event that I am looking forward to be a part of here in about 2 months or so. We'll get to that next hour, but also we have to get to the most bizarre thing I heard from cable news that I have not played yet next on KCMO. I mostly avoid the Sunday news shows. It's like, why ruin my weekend with this nonsense if I don't have to, especially an Easter weekend? Good morning, 904. It's great to be here on KCMO 95.7 FM. But I will catch a clip or two that goes viral over the weekend. And this one stood out above the rest. It was not from one of the Sunday shows. It was late Friday and the Saturday that Jake Tapper happened to have on Sean Casten. Now, this is a guy who is obviously a Democrat in the House of Representatives. And he is somebody who serves one state over from us in Illinois in their 6th congressional district. And he's asked about Donald Trump's immigration policy, which, as we've told you since last week, since the whole Maryland man, Maryland father became this national figure, we've told you about this individual and the fact that what Trump is doing, while, yes, there's a gray area when it comes to due process, making this a national story is actually going to be beneficial to Donald Trump because his immigration policy is actually his most popular policy based on the polling. The tariffs, people are, split on that. Even some Republicans are kind of nervous on what that might mean. Foreign policy, people want the Ukraine-Russia war to end, but as we saw over the weekend, it doesn't look like there's much of an end in sight right now. So you look at what's going on with immigration, and because of the terrible job done by the Biden administration, where it was basically open borders for 4 years, a lot of people have been radicalized on the issue. And I don't mean like actually radical. I just mean radicalized to basically this idea of, yeah, we should be a country of borders and we should embrace immigration, but we should do it in a lawful manner, which we didn't do for the last 4 years. So that is Trump's number one issue right now. And Democrats have handed him this issue on a silver platter over the last week with this newest member of Chiefs Kingdom, Kilmar Abrego Garcia. I'm kidding. We're not taking him in the Chiefs Kingdom, are we, fellas? We can't embrace him. No way, no how. I'm not interested in that.
No, I don't think so. He's a secret Agent Ravens fan anyway.
Yeah.
Wouldn't get him to sell with Bobadar, though.
Yeah, that's right.
What was that, super fan? What was
yeah, Chiefsaholic.
Chiefsaholic.
Yeah, put them in the same can together. Mm-hmm. Although that's probably better than Kilmar deserves.
Well, the new jail's not too far from the stadium there, so,
that's right.
Short drive.
Oh, man. So these guys obviously are bad cats. They're bad actors. And Trump is doubling down and saying, you know what, Democrats, if you want to embrace this guy who, according to police reports, was a wife beater, has MS-13 gang affiliations, according to district judges and reporting, and we know is in the country illegally. If this is the guy that you want to wrap your arms around, I'll take that bet politically. That's where the Trump administration is at right now. And then you hear this from this guy, Sean Casten, Illinois Democrat in the House of Representatives, with Jake Tapper late last week talking about this very issue.
You just heard CNN's Harry Enton that voters generally back Trump's immigration policies. Today in the Oval Office, President Trump said illegal immigration was, quote, the biggest reason he won re-election. He might be right about that. Do you think that your party is missing something on this issue?
Thanks for having me, Jake. I'd question that polling because when you tell people the stories, you get very different answers. Ask somebody whether they think an Afghani national who helped the U.S. troops find Osama bin Laden and now feels threatened at home and is here on an asylum case because they can't be sure they'll be safe at home and is under temporary protected status but not here legally yet. Should that person be deported? Should a dreamer who has fought for our military, should that person be deported?
We are now going to compare, according to Sean Casten of Illinois, we are now going to compare Kilmar Abrego Garcia to an Afghani national who helped us find Osama bin Laden. Are we really going to do that? That's the comparison he wants to make. I don't know about this whole polling thing because when you talk to people about this needle in a haystack situation, suddenly they're like, you know what? I don't know about the Trump policy. I'll tell you right now, an Afghani national who put his life on the line to help us find Osama bin Laden, I mean, he should do it the legal way. But please, if he wants to be an American, be my guest, buddy. I'm all in on that guy.
It's an obfuscation as if every immigrant here comes here illegally.
Well, that's true, too.
Right.
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
We're only after the ones illegal.
Yes, that's it.
Stop putting the legal ones in there. Finish the word. Illegal. Illegal.
We're
not
certainly
legal.
not looking to go after a dreamer who fought on behalf of the United States of America, who is now hopefully working their way through a process to becoming an American citizen. So at the 10, 15, 20 million people, whatever that number is, that have crossed the border illegally, we're going to try to find two totally out-of-the-box examples that in no way define the general population that this administration is looking to deport, and using that as the main reason for why we're not going to do anything on the illegal immigration issue. That's the approach, huh? It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And when it comes to common sense, boy, that is lacking in a major way. And they're just destroying themselves on the issue. That's the other problem. Now, over the weekend, you did have the Supreme Court come down on technically Saturday morning. The Supreme Court came down and basically said to Trump, you cannot use the act from 1798. You just can't use that to kick people out of the country, or I should say deport people out of the country under the Aliens Enemies Act of 1798. You can't do it. Not 1978, the year John graduated high school, but 1798. Can't do that. And there were only two dissenters on that, Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito. But as Bill Ackman said over the weekend, and Bill is a hedge fund guy who used to be a just run-of-the-mill Wall Street Democrat. He's been radicalized over the last couple of years. He said, quote, a nation in which one administration can allow millions of unvetted illegal migrants into the country, but requires that a court vet each deportation decision in an individually adjudicated case will soon lose the values of our democratic system and what it was intended to preserve. He's spot on with that. And we're also in this weird place where the duly elected president of the United States is getting stopped at every turn by judges. Now, do we have three co-equal branches of government or not? That's the other question that I think the administration needs to try to figure out an answer to sooner rather than later, because if not, they're going to get stopped at every turn. I mean, the ACLU, think about that. The American Civil Liberties Union is the group that brought the lawsuit on behalf of Venezuelan migrants to try to stop the administration from deporting these individuals out of Texas. The American Civil Liberties Union. If there's ever an organization that is no longer living up to its name, it's the ACLU. I mean, what a wacko group and wacko organization they've turned out to be.
Bad hombres.
That's exactly right. They are the definition of bad hombres.
Trump could pass a thing. Kentucky did this back in the 70s for Kentucky Fried Chicken. So the state of Kentucky wanted money if you used their name in a trademark. So Kentucky Fried Chicken was KFC up until recently. Apparently that expired. If you use American in your title, you know, a cut to Uncle Sam.
I like that. That's how we're replacing the income tax with tariffs and charging the ACLU for branding rights. Oh, that's outstanding. Coming up, we would love for you to partake in a great event I will be participating in coming up on the Saturday before Father's Day. A great cause to fight and bring awareness to the fentanyl crisis that has impacted Kansas City and, frankly, the entire nation. Second year being a part of it, we'll tell you all the details coming up next on 95.7 FM KCMO. Well, we are thrilled to be once again joining and partnering with the Cooper Davis family and the Cooper Davis Memorial Foundation for their 5K run walk that is coming up on June 14th. It'll be at Mill Valley High School, as it has been every year. This is now year 4. And Libby Davis is here on KCMO Talk Radio, the organizer, the mother of the late Cooper Davis, joining us as this organization, this foundation, does an incredible job with fentanyl awareness and education across the Kansas City area. So, Libby, good morning. Thank you for being here. And I know that Cooper's story is very well known around the Kansas City area, but for those that may not know the story, just remind us of what happened to Cooper and how this became, obviously, such a large and growing foundation here in the Kansas City area.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. It's good to be back. So our 16-year-old son, Cooper, back in August of 2021, he was with some friends on a Sunday afternoon, and we got that call that every parent fears, Shawnee Police telling us that Cooper was having a medical emergency. We needed to get there as soon as possible. We would find out later that 5 friends shared 2 pills that they believed to be Percocet, and all of the kids that day had very scary reactions, but Cooper was the only one that did not survive. My husband and I are both in the medical field. My husband gives fentanyl every day he goes to work. But prior to August of 2021, we'd never heard of illegally manufactured fentanyl. So we found out shortly after that we had a new epidemic, opioid epidemic in America, and it was related to illegally manufactured fentanyl. And we decided right away that we wanted to use Cooper's story to help educate others in our community and across the state.
So, it really is a poisoning because, and you and I have talked about this before, they thought they were taking a Percocet. There was no intention of taking fentanyl. But oftentimes now we have these street drugs where even the dealers don't know what's in them. And the fentanyl is laced in this stuff. And, it's really killing young people all over the country. But one thing that you shared with me is that, especially with those older teenagers, Kansas is more impacted than any other state in the nation. What's the data there to back that up?
Yeah, so data from the CDC shows that for 2 years in a row, so this reflects 2022 and 2023, Kansas leads the nation in fentanyl-related death rate per capita. So we have the highest death rate per capita for ages 15 to 19.
And that obviously Cooper was right in there at 16 years old. And it's something that the state's got to grapple with. The entire country obviously is grappling with the fentanyl crisis. And hopefully, things are starting to trend in a positive direction as issues get taken care of down at the border. But for you, as you bring awareness to this around Kansas and the Kansas City area, for people that are going to partake hopefully in the 5K run walk coming up here in a couple of months, what do the funds go to, and what do you do with them as you continue to build the Cooper Davis Memorial Foundation?
Yeah, so most recently, and gratefully, because we've worked toward this for a long time, figuring out how we can use the funds most effectively to have the greatest impact. And so starting last year, in about March of last year, we worked with the Johnson County Prevention and Recovery Coalition and another organization called Overflow, developed a social media campaign. So all of our funding really goes to this paid social media campaign that last year was really focused on reaching our youth, ages 13 to 24. And right now we're in development of new content that will be pushed to parents and caregivers so we can really reach the adult population too, because everybody needs to be aware of what's going on so that they can have conversations about it at the dinner table.
Because I got to imagine a lot of parents, especially if it's an oldest child or something where they're first time parents of teenagers, there's some naivete, I guess, out there on this stuff, right? Is that what you're learning as you talk to more parents?
Well, absolutely. Obviously, I already shared my husband and I knew nothing about this.
Mm-hmm.
So we knew there were a lot of other families. We also know that there's a little bit of a stigma
Mm-hmm.
in talking about drugs and drug use. And And a lot of families just want to turn the other way and say, not my child. But in this day and age, with fentanyl in the drug market, that is one of the most dangerous statements that a parent can make, because this can affect any family. It can affect high-performing teenagers. In fact, teenagers are the age group that has been the most impacted by fentanyl making it into the drug supply.
Wow. Libby Davis is here, mother of the late Cooper Davis, of course, runs the Cooper Davis Memorial Foundation. We are thrilled to be partnering with them for their 4th annual 5K run and walk coming up at Mill Valley High School. That is on Saturday, June 14th, the Saturday of Father's Day weekend. And we hope that you'll join us for that. Keeping Clean for Coop is what it's called. I was thrilled to be a part of it last year. I ran with my 2 oldest girls, and we'll be back again this year for that event. You can right now go ahead and sign up at CooperDavisMemorialFoundation.org. That's CooperDavisMemorialFoundation.org. Of course, we'll link to all this as well on our Facebook and X accounts as well when we're done here with the conversation. But what about the social media side of this, Libby? I know that's a huge problem as well. It's where, sadly, a lot of these, I would say, children get preyed on. So how does that factor into the conversations you have as you try to bring awareness to this issue?
Yeah, it plays a ginormous role in this problem. And while there hasn't been much success in shutting down social media or getting social media companies to take more responsibility or initiative to protect our kids, we always fall back to knowing that awareness is our best defense. Education is our best defense. So the more we can educate the teenagers in our lives and those around us, the more lives we can save. So we just really focus on getting that information out there.
Are there platforms from your experience that are worse than others at this?
Yeah, I think for sure Snapchat probably is the most notorious. I hear from a lot of law enforcement agencies that they're very hard to work with when they are investigating deaths where it is believed that drugs were purchased through that app. I think drug dealers have a tendency to go to that platform because, messages disappear in a short amount of time, and it is harder to get to historical data from those platforms. So that draws, drug dealers there, and of course, naive teenagers there, because they probably know they're doing something maybe they shouldn't, or they don't want their parents to see, and it's comforting to know that message is going to disappear.
Yeah, exactly. And they're already on there, so it's an easy preying ground, I guess you would say, for these dealers.
Right.
Is there one group or one area where you feel like you're having the most impact? Is it in schools when you speak? Is it with the law enforcement folks? What has your experience been on that front?
Our passion has always been to reach the kids. So I love speaking in schools. And I do feel like, the teachers are always concerned that they'll not pay attention or be disrespectful. But inevitably, by the time I'm done doing my little 30-minute presentation, you can hear a pin drop in that auditorium. They're very engaged. I hope that is changing lives. We never are able to truly count.
Yeah, you can't count
the impact that we're having, but we have to believe. There's always, time for Q&A, and they ask great questions. So I want to believe that we're really getting through to them, and it is helping them make better decisions as they move forward.
And what's the best way for schools that they want to get in touch with you to have you speak?
They can, find us on social media, reach out through social media. Our website has an email, if they want more information, it comes directly to me. But we get back, as soon as we can.
Well, Libby, thank you for all you're doing, and we look forward to seeing you out there on June 14th.
Thanks, Pete.
Cooper Davis Memorial Foundation.org. I'll be there. It's going to be a great time. Hope you'll join us as well. News in a minute, and then what did the Speaker of the House of Missouri say about the local teams? We'll get to it next.
Call Mundo 913-408-7957. Now on 95.7 FM.
All right, Mark, have I got you to volunteer yourself for the Father's Day 5K on behalf of the Cooper Davis Memorial Foundation, or are you going to tell me you're busy? Oh, wait, you might be out of town.
I was going to say, I might be back by then.
No, you're going to be out of town.
Oh, I'm going to be out of town. Okay.
Yeah, because you're leaving on the 12th of June. I know your schedule better than you do.
It's true.
Don't tell your wife this.
No, it's okay.
But you are going to be out of town because you're going to miss the Guy Benson event.
Missing all the good stuff.
You're missing the 5K. You're missing the big Juneteenth celebration we have every year here on KCMO.
That's right.
You're missing it all, man.
My nephew's got to graduate right at that exact week.
Oh, gosh. Make sure this doesn't happen again, okay? There's too much going on during that week that you're going to miss out on, man. I can't get you in the 5K, can't get you out to the Benson event, and I can't get you in the big Juneteenth parade that we do around the radio station. So maybe next year we'll get you involved.
I was going to say, next year I should be good. The year after that, my other nephew might be graduating. I don't know.
Oh, good enough with these nephew graduations halfway across the country.
I know.
Enough. You're too good of a family member. Are we talking high school graduation?
Yeah, high school graduation.
Come on. Maybe a college, Mark. A high school graduation?
Yeah, I don't know about college these days.
Oh,
so.
that's true. That's true. I'll give you that. That's fair. Okay, fine. I'll allow it. I already approved the vacation, so he's fine.
Thank you.
All right.
Such a nice man.
I know.
Such a nice man.
Oh, man. All right. So this morning we had on Missouri Speaker of the House. His name is John Patterson, and I asked him where he was at and where he felt the legislature was at when it comes to the Royals and the Chiefs, the future of these two stadiums, and the future of these two teams in terms of where they might be at. Now, this is unique because for the first time ever, the Speaker of the House of Missouri is a Lee Summit resident, a Jackson County resident. So there's a little bit of extra interest at the top of the leadership ranks on, of course, keeping these two teams in the area. But John Patterson was very open to the idea, and this is what you're starting to get the sense of. John Patterson's open to this as a Jackson County lawmaker, sending one of these two teams, obviously the Royals, out of Jackson County, but keeping them in Missouri.
Yeah, I think the legislature is going to keep doing what we've said we're going to do, which is provide tax relief to Jackson Countyans. I think that's the main job of the legislature at this point. I do think that Clay County site is attractive for a lot of reasons. The number one being that it would take off half of the load for Jackson County taxpayers and let Clay Countyans take over that. And I think that won't necessarily need legislation, although I think some people are trying to form a sports authority up there, which I'd be in favor of. But let Clay Countyans take the Royals, and I think that is somewhat of an attractive option, and it keeps them in Missouri.
All right, that's John Patterson laying low. Of course, he doesn't want to say too much. I get it. But you read between the lines there. He's like, we want the Royals up in Clay County. We want the Chiefs to stay where they're at. We want the taxpayer in Jackson County to be allowed to exclusively focus on the Chiefs. And here is where the Chiefs can look like heroes, the legislature can look like heroes, and the taxpayers end up with a win. Right now, these two teams split 3/8 of a cent in Jackson County. That means they each get 3/16 of a sales tax. So that's less than a quarter cent, right? If the Royals leave for Clay County and the Chiefs say, we're going to go on the ballot and we are going to apply for or ask the taxpayer for a quarter cent sales tax, that is more money than they are currently getting from the county, which right now is about 19 cents, or I guess 19% of 1 penny, 3/16 of a cent. They're getting 19% of a penny. If they apply for a quarter cent sales tax, they increase their revenues from the county by about 25-30%. And the taxpayer gets a tax cut from 3/8 of a cent down to a quarter cent. It's not a ton of money, but think about the politics of it. The Chiefs can go to the Jackson County taxpayer and say, we know your taxes are too high. We want to get you a tax cut, but they still would get more of the money because they're no longer splitting it with the Royals. But they can cut that 3/8 of a cent down to a quarter cent and still get more money out of the deal, about 25% more money out of the deal. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. I'm not saying you should fall for that. But they can technically say, the lawmakers can say this, and the Chiefs can say this, approve this tax, Chiefs only, and you get a tax cut out of it. That is not technically an inaccurate assessment of what that would mean. And then the Royals will be up in Clay County, and, they'd have to obviously get a sales tax passed up there, looking at about a half cent. Right now is what the rumors are, what the reports are. And suddenly you find yourself in a spot where you are spreading the love. But it's very evident now what Missouri lawmakers just want to obviously prevent is one of these teams going to Kansas. But the bigger goal is keeping the Chiefs where they're at. That's the ultimate goal, with the secondary goal keeping the Royals in the state of Missouri. There's no appetite from Jeff City, and we've reported on this for about a week now. There's no appetite in Jeff City to do what needs to be done to get the team downtown Kansas City, Missouri. The building costs are, from what I've gathered from people in Jeff City, almost double what they would be up in Clay County. That is a major problem as well. On the text line, Pete, taxpayers should not be paying for stadiums to begin with. The NFL makes more than enough money to pay the players and all the crazy amounts for playing a game. Why should the taxpayers front the bill for a stadium? I agree. I mean, I totally understand that sentiment. I mean, that's the conversation that's been going on for years. But until we see a city or a state basically put its foot down and say, we're done, it's not going to happen, then there's going to be some type of incentive from some government body, whether it's a city, a county, or a state, to keep these teams. My goal is to live in Realville, basically try to limit that damage. That would be my goal. If I was on the Missouri side, that would be my goal as well. Now, you may say, you know what? If I'm a Missouri resident, you may say, tell them the pound sand, go to Kansas, I don't care. That's fine as well. That's a totally acceptable sentiment to have right now in this current environment and this current climate. I'm just telling you, the state of Missouri and Jackson County will do what they can, what they're able to do to try to make it attractive while also not give up the entire farm. That's going to be the goal right now for the state government and, of course, the county government. But today is a big day for the county government as well, because you've got Frank White's future potentially on the line. Sean Smith said last hour, Jackson County legislator, that he is going to look into the possibility of trying to figure out whether or not Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey can remove Frank White from office. He's done this, of course, with prosecutors on the St. Louis side of the state. So Sean said, he admitted, he's like, I don't know the legal side of this. I just know it may be worth exploring. What I'd rather see happen is the recall effort take place. I'm not going to lie. It makes me a little uneasy if a state lawmaker could remove a duly elected local official. Now, I know that Frank has had a ton of issues, but still, I would rather see the recall effort work out here, especially when apparently the votes or the signatures are there. If the signatures are there and this group, Democracy in Action, I believe it is just waiting on its paycheck from somebody to release all the signatures, then let's figure out how to get them paid. If they've got tens of thousands of signatures, the people in charge, the people who pursued this from the get-go, have got to figure out how to get this group paid. That's the quickest and fastest way to do it, not fighting it in the courts and seeing if there's an appetite from the Attorney General to remove the Jackson County executive. And while Andrew Bailey's done a tremendous job, I would be shocked if he was willing to open up this can of worms with County Executive White. 913-408-7957. That's our text line and our studio line on KCMO. We will wrap up the show with you. The President of the United States is mad at somebody else this morning. We'll answer that one to wrap it up before Kevin Keatsman uncanceled, coming up at 10.
Hey, it's Kevin Keatsman. Stick around. I'm coming up at 10 o'clock right after Pete Mundo on KCMO 95.7 FM.
Well, the markets are getting smoked again so far this morning. Dow is off 800 points. So that is good for about a 2% drop in the first hour of trading. S&P is off 116 points, also 2%, and then 2.5% to 3% decline so far for the NASDAQ, which, of course, is all your big tech stocks. Now, why is this happening? Well, there's a belief that Wall Street is having a fit over Donald Trump's latest Truth Social post. Here is what the president posted right about 1 hour ago. He writes here, preemptive cuts in interest rates are being called for by many. Yes, the people want them. Cut the rates. The people want them. With energy costs way down, food prices, including Biden's egg disaster, substantially lower, and most other things trending down, there is virtually no inflation. With these costs trending so nicely downward. Sorry, I got to read this in Trump speak. With these costs trending so nicely downward, just what I predicted they would do, there can be almost no inflation. But there can be a slowing of the economy unless Mr. Too Late, a major loser, lowers interest rates now, all caps, now. Europe has already lowered 7 times. Powell has always been too late, except this time too late only had one O in the 2. Except when it came to the election period where he lowered in order to help sleepy Joe Biden, later Kamala, get elected. How did that work out? Well, here we go. Trump Powell, the latest round of that showdown, is getting underway early on a Monday morning.
This is absolutely lit. This is lit.
So there's a fear that Trump may try to remove Fed Chairman Jerome Powell after calling him a major loser this morning, as only Donald Trump can do. Now, Wall Street does not want that. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. I'm just telling you, Wall Street clearly does not want that. There's a belief, and this is what Charlie Gasparino of Fox Business and Mizzou's finest graduate said on Friday on the show. Wall Street doesn't want it, and right now Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is the guy who is trying to prevent Donald Trump from firing Jerome Powell, the Fed chair. And Charlie does believe that if Trump wants to, he could fire Powell and get somebody who would lower interest rates. So Trump's basically saying, I want rates lower to try to prevent any recession. Also, this will help him theoretically with his tariff policy if people can get their hands on some cheaper money. And it hopefully will stabilize the economy because Trump is trying to do a lot right now at once. I've said it for weeks now. I support what he's trying to do with the tariffs. I do not know how it's going to work out, but I support him 110% on what he is attempting to do, especially when it comes to China. Especially when it comes to China, which has been obviously stealing intellectual property, manipulating currency, and treating our companies like garbage when it comes to importing to their country of 1.5 billion people. He's spot on with all of it. Is there a risk here with the worldwide and global tariff game that's being played? Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. But if it works, it will change this country for the better, not just next year, but I'm talking next century. I mean, it resets the entire global trade relationship as it currently exists with China, which is a very admirable cause. And the reason that no one else has tried it is because politically, it's not the smartest thing to do. Politically, it hurts you and it potentially hurts your party because the reality is we are addicted to cheap crap from China. 80% of the kids' toys in this country are made in China. I am guilty of this. I mean, I admit we could do a better job in our house figuring out a way to not buy crap from China. And I know that for many of you, you're nodding along. But it's the reality right now of our global markets. And it's the reality of global trade. Now, do I think that kids' toys are magically going to be made in South Dakota in a couple of years? No. Can we move them to more friendly countries, whether it's in Asia or South America or somewhere else? That would be great. I also know that doesn't happen overnight. But that's the big picture here. That's the goal. And Trump's not wrong with that goal. The question is bullying Jerome Powell into lowering interest rates the play? He's right that Powell was too late. Powell was way too late back in 21. Every amateur economist who's taken an Econ 101 course knew in 2021 inflation was coming. We spent way too much money in 2020 during COVID. That was also under Trump, in fairness. Biden blew it out of the water in early 21. And then, of course, inflation came late 21, and then 22 was a total nightmare. And Powell was like, and of course, Janet Yellen as well, who was a total mess. They both took the approach of, let's see what happens. It's transitory. No need to raise the rates just yet. And they were late. That's why Trump calls them too late Jerome or too late Powell, whatever the nickname is for the day. So he's right that he was too late. And he's also right to say, I don't want this guy to be late on lowering rates. But there is a fear that if you lower rates right now, you do also cause more inflation, right? If everyone then runs out to go buy a vehicle when these car parts are also going up in prices because of some of the tariffs, at least the cars that are partially made overseas, what does that do? The housing market is still pretty hot. It's softening a little bit, but it's been out of whack for the last few years anyway. So a softening in the housing market, I don't believe is the worst thing in the world, as much as I would love to see more people go out there and own homes. But there's a lot of moving parts, and there's no guarantee that reducing rates right now, which is what Trump wants to see, cures a lot of the issues that are out there. In fact, I'm not convinced that it does. But know that these two guys going back and forth right now is obviously something that the markets are watching very closely and will absolutely play a role with this global tariff conversation that is going to be, it looks like, top of mind for the week ahead. And with that, we're done on a Monday morning. Kevin Keatsman Uncanceled is coming up 10 to 11 before Vince Colonnese takes over then on 95.7 FM KCMO. And if you have not yet done it, download the KCMO Talk Radio app and make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. Enjoy the beautiful Monday. We're back tomorrow morning at 6 a.m.